Welcome back to VOP this morning. Now, the National Human Rights Commission, NHRC, says the removal of the petrol subsidy by the federal government has further increased poverty in the country. Oh well. In a statement to mark the 2023 World Humanitarian Day, observed every August 19, Tony Ojukwu, Executive Secretary of NHRC, mentioned that there is a need to provide humanitarian assistance for low-income earners. Now, the recent removal of fuel subsidy has created untold hardship to the majority of Nigerians, especially the low-income earners, making them deserving of humanitarian assistance as they are no longer able to provide for some basic needs of life. Well, he also added, he added that these needs are important and should be done as soon as possible. Well, joining us in the studio now to talk about this is Cyril Abaku, VOP in-house analyst. We had to keep him on. We had to keep Cyril on. Well, Cyril, is this news really? First off, the removal of subsidy has affected a lot of things. All right. Now, this feels like a situation. It feels like we are in a time of war. So now regular people who are not internally displaced are in need of humanitarian services. How terrible can this, how much worse can it get?
Well, so first we want to hope that these two shall pass. You can only have hope. You can only so much as have hope. It's been long when we've been told that as far as there's life, there's hope. So let's hope that
the renewed hope.
Exactly that our
hope.
Hope
in renewed hope.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like the poem. That our hope will indeed be renewed and will grow in strength. But until that time comes, it's not a very good place to be. The reality is that right now we're not at the best of times. The reality is that right now poverty is on the increase. There are job losses. If you were earning, let's say, 100,000 naira 3 months ago, you couldn't say you are earning the same thing again because inflation has come to, has come to take its own share of your earning. So price of things are going up. It means that people's earning power is going down. It means that purchasing power is also on the decline. And when people are poor, they won't be able to assert their rights. They are not able to confront injustice. They are not able to seek redress in court. There's a whole lot that they are not able to do. If an employer came one day to shut the door against the employees without any severance of any kind, perhaps those workers haven't even come to work for about a week or a month. Where did they now, raise the money to say they are going to seek maybe redress from the industrial court or somewhere to say we must pay their entitlements? And sometimes, industrial hazard could also be an increase because in several places of work where maintenance is not optimized, people begin to fall casualty to industrial accidents and so on, and you won't hear their voices because it takes somebody whose belly is full to be able to yell or to shout or to scream. But where that is out of the window, you find that the case is different. And for now, right now, the biggest harbinger of poverty, as your story rightly pointed out, is the matter of of subsidy being removed. The fact is, if you are producing something at 200 naira and it suddenly jumped up to 500 and something naira, it is either you entirely go out of business to avoid taking such a humongous risk. You know that entrepreneurship or business is defined as when we talk about factors of production, we talk of capital, we talk about land, we talk about labor. Yes, but entrepreneurship itself is primarily risk taking. That's how it's defined globally. The person who takes the risk is the entrepreneur. That's the human element. The third component that comes into the conceptualization of the whole process by the person who owns the business is risk taking. Entrepreneurship is the person who bears the risk. So how much risk do you want to bear? Because even risk has ways by which it is managed. So you don't want to fall into unmitigated risk waters where you just put in money. Maybe you've taken money from the bank. You took the money when you took the loan at an interest rate of 5%. 2 months later, inflation has gone to jack up the interest rate, and of course it will reflect on the interest. then the CBN, then what's it called? Then while the interest is rising on your loan, the cost of purchasing your raw materials has also risen. So that way, you're caught in a very bad place, and that's why. So when they say that on World Humanitarian Day, the poverty is on the increase, it's because we are not doing enough to shield, to shelter, to shore up the consequences of certain government policies that have now come on stream, that have thrown people into a tailspin. But for now, the major question is the subsidy removal. What can really be done about it?
All right, talking about not doing enough, government has said it will do a lot of things. CNG buses, CNG depots, food grains to be distributed, monies given to states, 5 billion now to states. These are measures that government has put out in its bid to reduce the sufferings of the masses. But how much longer are we going to wait before we see the implementation of these things?
Great. I'm glad you even said that government has said, but not that government has done. Government has said, but
well, some states have, for that one, some states have received 2 billion out of the 5 billion.
Only one state came out to publicly acknowledge that they've received 2 billion. I think that's Kwara State. We owe them an applause. I owe the governor an applause. Because he alone came out to say he has received 2 billion.
But he can't be the only one that has received it.
And the other ones are not complaining that they've not received it.
Okay.
So you can fit the blank spaces. But for what it is worth, again, the point to be made is when government thought it necessary to take subsidy out of the off the table, I would have thought that the instruments you use to shore up the pain, to help people alleviate their sufferings, should have been put in place first, or should have been on standby, so that subsidy is taken away and we don't even feel it. I am of the opinion that subsidy ought actually to have been taken away, but not in the way that it was taken away. Now, for one, the main reason why subsidy needed to be taken up was because of the humongous corruption that was involved in it. You cannot tell us that you are spending 400 billion naira every month on subsidy. It doesn't make sense. It is funny, it is criminal, it is ridiculous, it is a joke. But the way to go about it, is it to just say no more subsidy, or you say who are these people who have been taking government money for nothing, doing nothing with it? Why can't you take it back if indeed it was corruption laden? Government sidestepped those thieves, and then which even it acknowledged in Mr. President's speech on August 1, then went ahead to transfer the burden of the thievery and debt of those people to the poor, and said the poor should bear the brunt of it. Those of us who are a bit enlightened know that every society has to pay a price to become great. But the point is this: how do we all agree that this is a price that is really worth it? That must pay this price, because the people must wake up to own the price to be paid. For example, in 2 examples, during NSAS, people said, you know what, this is our lives. If we do nothing about it, it will not stop. We must do everything we can about it. And they rose up to own the process. In Niger, people are calling for a volunteer force. They are telling the government, raise a volunteer force, we are ready to defend our democracy. Assuming that was not propaganda, assuming it was organic, you say that people are the ones saying, government, if you want to go to war, we are totally behind you. But in this case, are Nigerians saying we are behind government in taking subsidy away? Are Nigerians saying even if we starve, we don't mind? Are Nigerians saying even if we try to work, we don't mind? Are Nigerians really the ones saying take subsidy? Because the reality is that the only time there's been a protest on subsidy, which the president and his allies led in 2012, it was that subsidy must stay. Now that he has come and said subsidy must go, how has he handled it differently? When subsidy was taken away in 2012, by this time we had Shopee buses. Subsidy, what about reinvestment program? Yes.
What even happened to those buses?
Now there's a government in town. Nobody's even saying anything about that. So why can't we look?
Now
Like,
we're talking about CNG.
no, we're talking about CNG. Yeah. And when are those even going to come? Have we even awarded the contract? Have we told people to please help us check in China or Belgium or Croatia somewhere to say, or America to say, anyway, or maybe you've made a contractor to go and you mobilize a contractor first of all to go and look for, because tomorrow may hear that government needs to do feasibility study, following the compatibility study, following the applicability study, following the whatever. So before, in another 1 year, these buses may not even have come to Nigeria. Because the next thing you may hear is, let's even look for a way to put a plant in Ajaokuta or somewhere where, so that we can be producing those buses in Nigeria. You know that this is a long story. Our brother is in the south, is Enugu where Innocent.
Yeah.
Couldn't we even ask him and say, what will it take you to produce this other buses? Well, give us 1,000 units, let's start from there. Nobody's even saying anything about that. So until we are willing to look inwards and look for solutions that are Nigerian, that can solve Nigerian problems, I don't see this thing going anywhere too far. Primarily, people are now becoming poorer because transport costs are on the increase. You can't continue to pay. We in a country where lecturers have been told to go to school twice a week, and everybody thinks it. I mean, we just say, and that's what we see. It shouldn't be like that. People are now going to work 2 times a week, 3 times a week. You know, how are they feeding? How do they take care of medical bills? How are they? So all these things are there on the table. Rent is rent, and believe me, if when people see that, when with the price of everything gone, is it rent that will not? School fees have gone up. School fees have gone up. Rent, everything like that. So there ought to be actual room, not the caricature and mockery of government. There must be actual room for the poor to breathe. Because Nigeria moved from being we were the poverty capital of the world only a few years ago, and the APC people are very, I don't know, the President Buhari laid a very good foundation for poverty in Nigeria. He was the one, it was on his watch that from one government pardon me, I don't know if President Buhari was aware that on his watch we became the poverty capital of the world. I mean, no, and I kid you not. But the fact remains this. Now, more people are even going into poverty. So, Nigeria's global standing is now that this is the country that has some of the poorest people in the world.
All right, so we have Nick Agule joining us virtually. Good morning to you, Nick. Hello, Nick.
Good morning, and good morning to our viewers.
All right, good morning. Good to have you on the show. Now, Nick, I hope you had a restful weekend, and I can see that you have lights. That's wonderful. Okay. Now, Nick, we're talking about it was World Humanitarian Day.
Yes, the weekend was as restful, but
Go ahead.
yes, I was about to say that the weekend was restful, though this light you are seeing, we didn't have light from Friday till yesterday when it was restored. And this is the federal capital of one of the major oil and gas producing nations. Very shameful.
Very shameful indeed. Very shameful. Oh well, it was World Humanitarian Day over the weekend, August 19th specifically, and National Human Rights Commission have said that Nigeria is, poverty in Nigeria is increasing by the day, and most of it brought about by the removal of fuel subsidy and the effect it's having on Nigerians. And I want to ask now, we've talked about this a whole lot, all right, but we will continue to talk about it until government sees reason to do the needful. Maybe they need advice, and we are here to give them that advice. Now, Nick, tell me about some alternative strategies and policies that government can take. Let's start with government, and then we'll go into CSOs and individuals that they can take to address the rising cases of poverty in Nigeria right now.
Thank you very much for that question. I consider myself having dual residency. because now that I am retired, I spend a lot of time in Nigeria, but I still live in the UK, and that's where my family is. So I can tell you authoritatively, not what I read in the papers or read in any book, what the government is doing to me in the UK, supporting me. When I was working, and I used to work for International Oil and Gas Company at their global headquarters in London. I was earning, let me say, good salary. I was getting nothing from the government, absolutely nothing. Government considered me to be a big man, even though I wasn't that big, but my salary threshold was above where government supports anybody. But immediately I retired and my income levels fell, I started to receive a whole lot.
Unfortunately, we seem to have a network glitch there. That's really unfortunate. We'd like to have Nick's analysis of the situation, but we'll come back to Nick as soon as we're able to reestablish um, communication with him. Well, Cyril is with us in the studio.
Yeah.
Cyril, let's come back to you now.
So
Yeah.
Cyril, I would ask this question. To what extent will this humanitarian
Okay,
assistance?
government is.
Okay,
Can you
go
hear
ahead,
me?
please.
Are you hearing me?
Yes,
I'm
yes,
seeing
yes,
that I'm
yes.
on the still image.
We lost you for, I
Are you
mean,
hearing me?
yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, because I saw my picture was frozen on the screen, so I wasn't sure.
Oh,
I
yes,
don't
yes.
know at what point did you hear me last, so that I don't go back and repeat what
It's
I've
okay. It's okay if you
already
do.
said. But
Government was paying you. You were saying that you were receiving a whole lot. That's the last thing.
yes, so I am still receiving a whole lot from the government. Child benefit for the last one, my daughter who is less than 18 years, who is less than 18 years. The government is providing a money to me on a quarterly basis, just push hundreds of pounds of funding into my account to help me with the cost of living, and that is to the fact that I don't bother about school fees.
Now let me ask
The
you this.
government
Let
is
me interrupt you
providing
for
free
a bit.
education to every child.
Let me get this thought out of the way. Is this assistance coming because you
Yeah.
were some pension was taken from your pay when you were working, or did you remit some money into some coffers? Is that what is being used now to support you?
Or is this purely from government?
Okay, so this is the way it works. If you are earning good amount of salary, the government takes substantial tax from your pay. For instance, for me, I was paying 40% of my earnings as tax, as payee, personal income tax. And government puts all that money in a pool, and government uses part of that money to support the less privileged in society. This is the point I was driving at. And you don't have to have paid anything into the coffers of government. If you are a less privileged person or any low income from the beginning till whatever time, government is going to be paying you this money. So the reason government is paying me this money is not necessarily because I contributed to the coffers, but it's because they look at my income now as a retiree, and is no longer it has met the threshold of income earners that need to be supported by the government. That is the basis for what government is doing to me. I didn't need to pay into the coffers of government. And I'm saying this thing to underscore the fact that even in the developed world, because the UK is a developed country by any indices, the government is supporting the less privileged people, supporting the poor people. Not to talk about Nigeria, where government is not providing anything. I was about to say that the government is providing education free of charge to every child up to 18 years, because it is at 18 years that the children go to university. So up to age 18, when they finish at high school, we pay no dime as school fees. totally free. No books, nothing. Yeah, and well, government is providing healthcare. I don't bother about healthcare. If anybody is sick in the family, you go to the personal doctor, that is the GP, which is the primary health care. And if the GP thinks that this is something that requires hospital care, they refer you to the hospital, which is secondary care. And if the hospital now sees that, oh, your case requires specialist attention, they send you to a specialist hospital, which is the tertiary institution. In a developed country like the UK, where income levels are well above Nigeria, government is there for the people. And in Nigeria, the government is totally absent. The poor people have been thrown under the bus. They have no support from the government, and the government is implementing policies that are inimical to their growth and welfare. So this is the point I'm making, that the poverty levels in Nigeria are just too much for the people, because government is totally absent.
All right, now we have a situation where it's interesting that you said this, but we have a situation in Nigeria where uh, government at some point had to borrow from pension money. So it just feels like the government has absolutely no idea how to solve this problem. But if you were to advise now, if you were to advise the government, let's even talk about the government before we look at civil society organizations. If you were to advise the government on how to find a way to reduce the poverty level that Nigerians are, the poverty level in Nigeria right now, what would that advice be?
The advice will be that the government needs to consider that a place like the UK, that is a developed nation, unemployment is just 5% or less, inflation is 5% or less. The government is there for the people. One of the benefits the government is giving to me is what they call tax credit. So instead of me paying taxes, the government is rather putting money into my account for any low income. In Nigeria, the government does not have money to do this kind of social program that I'm discussing about. And the reason why the government does not have money is because the government is lazy. The government is failing to do what they need to do to generate money. Let me give you a few instances. We hear, and government themselves confirm, that they are stealing about 1 million barrels of crude oil from Nigeria production daily. If President Tinubu today summons the chief of naval staff, summons NIVASA, summons the Nigerian Army, the Air Force to his office and read the riot act to them and say, if anybody steals a barrel of crude oil from Nigeria production, all of you will lose your jobs instantly. Instantly. I'm not taking this thing for a second. Do you know that the stealing of crude oil in Nigeria will stop? And if the stealing of crude oil in Nigeria will stop, 1 million barrel current oil price of $80 is $80 million daily. Meaning in 30 days in a month, we will make $2.4 billion. And if we make $2.4 billion every month, there will be money for government to start taking care of the poor of this country. There will be money for government to start putting. Look at what we were talking about. The NNPC went and collected a loan, billion, and we were celebrating it. Celebrating it as if we won the World Cup. A loan, no. Whereas if the government stops the stealing of crude oil, we will make $2.4 billion of money that is revenue. It's not a loan, monthly. If today, as we speak today, the government says all foreign trips of federal officials has come to a stop. If anybody must travel, it must be on an emergency basis. That is going to save dollars for us. That every day they are carrying their concubines and girlfriends and traveling. There is too much wastage in government. Those are the areas you cut those fats. As we speak today, it is only the poor people that pay taxes in Nigeria. Surprise you, but that's the truth. This morning, go to any market, go to Oyingbo market, go to any market anywhere in Nigeria, the collectors in the market that are cutting tickets for those women. Every day they cut ticket for them. those are taxes that those women are paying. How much tax did Dangote pay? Tony Elumelu pay? $1 pay? Where are their tax returns? Do you understand? People are flying private jets in Nigeria. How much are they putting in the coffers? Like I told you, I was paying 40%. The UK tax rate, the UK personal income tax rate starts from 20% to 40% to 45%. I was on the 40% threshold. And in the UK, you have to be earning £12,000 before you pay tax. That you must be earning £1,000 minimum a month. If you are earning £1,000 a month, you will not pay tax. It's zero tax. In Nigeria, the big men are not putting money in the coffers of government. Even corporate entities who are supposed to be paying corporate income tax, how much of that tax are they paying? The VAT we are collecting, where is it? You understand? So at the end of the day, why wouldn't government have different rates for VAT as they have in the UK? You understand? So in the UK, VAT is 20% on most of the distance, but there are some other essential goods and services that have lower VAT rate, zero VAT rate. If the Nigerian government says you import private jet, you buy private jet, you buy an expensive car, your VAT will be 20%. Why, if you go and buy food and medicine, your VAT is 0%. Then if you go and buy electronics, your VAT is 7%. That is what you do by targeting the people who have the money and taking the money from them, and then giving the money to the poor of the society. Because it is said that the extent to which people are allowed to fall in poverty is what determines the conscience of a nation. And in Nigeria, we're showing we have no conscience because people are really pushed down to the ground.
All right then.
Mr. Nick, um, anyway, this whole issue is actually very dicey, especially in a country like Nigeria, where almost everybody, like a very large percentage of people, actually live in poverty. So if government is to support everybody financially, wouldn't, given the level of corruption we have here in Nigeria, how feasible would that be? Wouldn't it be better if government just looks into other sectors, in that making sure that, every other thing is subsidized, at least to, help the average Nigerian, so to speak, to afford some basic basic life quality, basically. So do you think that is a way to go, or actually giving them physical money, like distributing, just like the government said some weeks ago that that it will be given an amount of money to people who are people who can't afford basic things, especially now given the whole increase in full subsidy, in fuel price, I mean. So do you think that government should look into other sectors and not think about giving people individual monies, basically?
Thank you very much for that question. It is not an either thing. So it is not that if government is taking care of other sectors and all of that, they shouldn't also look after the poor. Or if the government is looking after the poor, that will stop them from taking care of other sectors. The government should do both. That's why they're a government. So the government creates an enabling environment for business to thrive. Because once business begins to thrive, businesses will start employing people. By employing people and paying them salaries, they are taking them out of poverty. That is not to stop the government from supporting those who are in poverty. So at the end of the day, this thing works with data. Government must have data to work with. Like in the UK, the government has my data of incomes that I earn. And that is why they're able to identify me as someone they are able to support. So if government identifies people with good data and targets them specifically, it is better than having a subsidy regime. Because like you see, in Nigeria, we have petrol subsidies, subsidy on petrol. But Otedola, Dangote, Tony Elumelu, and co, we are also enjoying that subsidy. Because when their cars drove into the petrol stations, they bought petrol at the same price that the people government wanted to target, which are the poor people, will buy. So such a generic or general subsidy regime, it is counterproductive. It is better for government to work.
All right, then. Well, we seem to have a network glitch again. Okay. Well, we'll have to wrap this conversation up right here. Cyril, now you did say, you said something about when, we know rather that sometimes sufferings are prices of goods go up, really up, when announcement is made. As soon as Nigerians hear
For
that,
the
they
less
start to.
privileged people who don't have cars.
All right, Nick. Nick, unfortunately, we lost communication
Yeah.
with you at some point, but we'd like for you to just stay on with us as we try to wrap up this part of the show and go on to another part of the show. But we must thank you for your contributions so far. Very, very insightful. Now, coming back to you, Sir. Now, are we having a situation now? What if we have a situation whereby government makes an announcement that there is, okay, when the announcement of subsidy a removal was made, price of everything went up automatically. How about if government comes back to make an announcement like they did in Kenya, that look, we are putting subsidy back on a few things? Do you think that will bring down the price of goods or maybe stabilize things a bit and then inadvertently reduce sufferings of people?
So what would happen is, I think it's classic economics, it's a Nigerian thing, it's human nature, that the moment the price of things going up happens faster than price of things coming down.
Well, true.
Because yes, once government says we're adding extra on this or we're taking off subsidy, immediately the queues begin to lengthen, the price of things go. In fact, good, what you could buy before now becomes scarce, actually. First, so that you have more money chasing fewer goods, which is really what you call inflation.
Should there be a regulation then?
Yeah,
Fixing
well,
of prices.
I mean, regulation can only go so far. But the fact is that if government came and said today, for example, that we are bringing back subsidy, as soon as they make the announcement, it will take. You see, the thing is, when is even government says it today? When do they release the money? When do the people if they say we've withdrawn it, believe me, they'll stop it immediately. But to release the money will take time. So even those who have bought old stock and so on, it will take like a week, a month, 2 months like that before things eventually stabilize. But government will have to match more than words with action, so that when they've said, they're actually also doing. Okay. They are always slow in releasing money, but very quick in withdrawing it. So that's really the problem.
All right, so let's go on to another part of the show now. Now, the ministers and their allowances, according to the designation, set to get 1.37 billion naira. Well, this is a conversation that we'll look at when we come back from this short break. Stay with us.